PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
She just goes a little mad sometimes.
Do you ever feel like you're normal and the rest of the world has lost its collective mind?
Put your helmet on. We'll be reaching speeds of 3.
Do you find people saying this to you a lot?
Are you totally deranged?
Are you looking for a looking glass to pass through?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Or looking for a rabbit hole to fall down?
Who could think of a better punishment, really? Everything's the same here, it's just a little worse.
Guess what?
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
You found it. Welcome to Platinum Rose's Garden.
Hello, my darlings. This is Platinum Rose Lady welcoming you to Platinum Rose's Garden on Saturday, the 9th of November, 2019. Oh, wow. Where is this year gone? Oh, my gosh. It's so crazy just to think that we're already in November, and it's just nuts. I can't believe this year's gone by so quickly. And up here in the northern part of the country, daylight savings time is over, so now it gets dark like wicked early, and that's so aggravating. It's getting dark by 4:30, and by 5:15 or so, it's pitch friggin' black. So it throws you all off, man. It's just so weird because it throws you off. And it was so cold yesterday. It was in the 20s yesterday, so I had to break out the big puffy winter coat, which, there are times when you sacrifice looking good for not, freezing and having parts of you drop off, because that's not fun. I mean, I don't think I look terrible in the coat, but let's be honest, nobody looks good in those puffy winter coats because they're not really meant for looking good. They're meant for keeping you warm, and pretty much you could be built like Kate Moss and you'd wind up looking like the Michelin Man. It's just one of those things. A bunch of people were saying that they saw a couple of flakes of snow, and I was like, oh, cool. And of course everybody else is all like, freaking panic. I'm like, it's New England, it's November. You're new, aren't you? I'm just like, it's gonna snow. It's gonna snow eventually, so why lose your shit about it? The one thing, now, for those of you out there listening to this podcast who are in the warmer parts of the country where it very rarely snows, I don't know if this happens, if it does snow where you live, but the thing is, up here in Massachusetts, the great inglorious state of Massachusetts, go Pats, when it's announced there's going to be a blizzard or whatever, we have this big rush to the stores. Not like we're having any blizzards in the immediate future. I mean, I like snow, but let's not get nuts. When they announce there's going to be a blizzard, blah, 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 everybody, of course, does the same damn thing. If they're not running to Home Depot or whatever to get shovels and sand and all that stuff, they're running to the store to grab necessities, which for some reason in Massachusetts is completely devoted to bread and milk. That if you go into a store when there's a storm on the horizon, not one of these storms that just sneaks up on people, but they know it's coming. People are in there and they're grabbing every container of milk and every loaf of bread they can get. And I'm always like, why? If the power goes out, the fridge is gonna, conk out and your milk's gonna go bad. I mean, if it's that cold outside, you can probably put stuff on the porch or whatever if you have a porch. But I don't get it. I'm like, why is it always bread and milk? Is everybody making French toast or bread pudding or something? I don't get it. I would just think that when we're out like grabbing stuff when we know there's going to be a storm coming, we're grabbing like crackers and things that won't spoil and stuff like that. But that's just us. And we don't have kids, so it's not like we have to worry about feeding, like small little people when it's time for, snow and school days are canceled and all that stuff. Thank goodness. But that's in the distance. We don't have to worry about snow like that for a little while, I hope. We do have other things to talk about, obviously, and one of them is this week's, what I'm watching this week, and I definitely think you should check out this site of the week. Okay, the site of the week this week is, I have to talk about this person. I've talked about them before on the other shows that we've done, my husband and I, my dear, sweet, long-suffering husband, TC, who I've mentioned before, who is my sweet Mayim Zadi, the butter to my bread and all that other stuff, the Natasha, the Boris to my Natasha, etc. and so forth. And the person who designs all our websites. And if you want to check out what the amazing job he did on ringaroundtherosie.net, which is my wrestling podcast, please go check out what he did there because it's totally awesome. We did a show earlier this year. It's an annual show we do called our Rising Stars List. It's a show that we do on Subject Cinema where we talk about actors or musicians or pro wrestlers or webcast people that we think, hey, you should check them out because we think they're going to be amazing. And, you're getting them at the start of their career and they're going to be awesome. So we've talked about this. I've talked about this person there, and I've also talked about them on Front Row 5 and 10, which is our list show. You can check out both of those shows on our webpage, and they're just lots of fun, and we hope you'll check them out. This guy is so crazy talented, and I wanted to bring him up and give him a special shout out for this week because of a video that he just posted. His name is RolePlay Riot, and he has a channel on YouTube. You can go look him up on YouTube. He is a voice actor and a voice artist and just an incredibly, insanely talented human being, on top of his, real job, and he's just this very sweet person. I've talked to him several times, and he does a lot of small role play pieces. Some of them are original characters. Some of them are characters from movies and comic books and television. Y'all see where I'm going, since this is a supernatural podcast and you're a smart bunch. His most recent video is him as Castiel. And holy fucking sugar covered crickets on a moped. Y'all, this is the shit. And he does such an amazing job. He is so good. He's got the voice down, absolutely rocking the trench coat. It is just so awesome. You can tell it's a real labor of love, and he's just got the tone right. He's got the tone absolutely right. And his take on Castiel speaking to a person and telling them about where their life is going to be now and the changes in it and stuff like that, it is so cool. You definitely have to check it out. Please, please, please go to RolePlay Riot on YouTube. Use the little search bar thing, computer stuff, because I don't know what I'm talking about because it's machines and that's hard. But go check out his work and leave him a like. Please subscribe. And if you do all that stuff and you like his stuff, please tell him you heard about him here on Platinum Rose's Garden, because that would be super wicked awesome and cool. So let's get to what you guys came for. This week's Supernatural episode recap. I'm going to warn you, this one triggered a lot.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest.
Season 15, Episode 4 of Supernatural, Atomic Monsters. This episode was directed by Jensen Ackles. It will be the last episode of Supernatural directed by Jensen Ackles. We begin with then, which is all the stuff that has happened this season and all the people we've already lost at the beginning of this season. The whole thing with Jack dying and Rowena dying and Cass leaving, and then we get Becky Rosen, who I haven't thought of for quite a while. Becky was a rabid Supernatural fan. As we all know, Supernatural in the Supernatural universe was a series of books written by Chuck Shirley, aka God. Becky was a huge fan of these books and at one point had a relationship with Chuck without knowing he was God. She just assumed or thought he was a prophet. And at one point drugged Sam with a love potion and married him. Give me a minute. I gotta calm down. And we cut to now. Now is in the Bat Cave in Lebanon, Kansas, because I refuse to call it the bunker because I just do. And everything is filmed in this red filter, which has obviously never been a good thing on Supernatural. And we see Dean in a firefight with there are other hunters that are helping him, but it's Dean fighting a lot of demons. And Dean also has a beard, and this whole thing looks like something straight out of a John Wick movie, with Dean playing John Wick, which if Keanu ever decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, I guess Jensen now is open for the gig, I guess. This whole thing has got me going, what the fuck, and I'm starting to panic. We see him in a room fighting off these other demons, and one of the people also in the room is Benny? Benny the vampire Benny? Who doesn't seem to be a vampire right now, and also who dies. Dean attempts to question one of the demons, but the demons are like, you'll never find him, blah, blah, blah. Dean winds up facing off with Sam. Sam, who went dark side and at some point embraced this whole, being the boy king and the whole demon blood thing, that at some point he killed Bobby, he killed Jody, and Dean's pleading with him, don't do this and all this stuff like that. And Sam's eyes go black, and Sam makes a small motion with his head, and Dean falls to the ground with a broken neck. And by now I'm having a full-blown panic attack, and I am triggered out the lang-lang, and Sam wakes up from the worst nightmare this side of anything Freddy Krueger could cook up, and we have the show starting. So pardon me while I go drink an entire bottle of gin. Hashtag Irish coping. That's a joke. That's a joke. Calm down. I'm part Irish, so I can get away with that. But I didn't really drink a bottle of gin, because we didn't have any in the house. This whole thing had me just going, okay, heartbeat now, please, heartbeat, please. I'm like trying to find a needle full of adrenaline and reenact that scene from Pulp Fiction. Fuck me! So we see Sam going into the kitchen where Dean is eating bacon, and he tries to offer Sam some, and Sam's all like, I don't eat that. And Dean tells him that it's veggie bacon, in between telling Sam that he doesn't look good. Well, no fucking shit. Sam's obviously hanging on by a thread, and Dean knows it. And so, as it turns out, though, it sounds like Dean's found them a case in Beaverdale, Iowa. Okay. Wow. I'm sorry. If there really is a Beaverdale, Iowa, I don't mean to sound I'm sorry, I hear anything with Dale on the end of it, and my mind instantly goes back to me playing Forgotten Realms with my buddies. And I'm like, well, it's not quite Shadow Dale or any of the other Dales in the Dale lands and stuff like that, because I'm a nerd! Ta-da! So anyway, apparently in Beaverdale, Iowa, they have been having some problems with cows. As in they're dying, or actually being found dead, and all torn up. And now whatever was killing the cows has apparently decided to graduate onto things that are less cow-like, and has also murdered a cheerleader. So that's obviously not a good thing. And at first, you know, like, when Dean brings up the whole cattle mutilation thing, and he's like, you know, Sam's like, I don't really want to do this. You can do it by yourself or get another hunter. But Dean's all like, no, we need to do this together. And Dean leaves the kitchen. Sam takes a bite of the veggie bacon. And, yeah, it's not veggie bacon. We get a whole talk about the whole meat man thing. This is me, this is there, this is me not going there. Yeah, not touching that for anything. So, off to Iowa, the Winchesters head wearing their Fed suits, and they are interviewing, Sam's interviewing Mrs. Bailey, who is apparently the vice principal at the local high school where the victim went. The victim's name was Susie. As it turned out, Susie was, you know, she wasn't a kid that had any enemies from the sound of it. She was the head of the cheerleading squad. Sorry. High school flashbacks. Sorry. And she was just one of those kids that everybody liked. So nobody had a hate on for her or anything like that. And nobody would have, you know, chopped her up and killed her. As it turns out, while Sam is talking with Mrs. Bailey, they are approached by a man and his wife. The woman is Janet Whitman, and this is her husband, Henry. Although in my mind, she'll always be Karen. And if you are a person that follows, you know, memes and things like that, you get it. Janet's all like, yeah, shame about a dead cheerleader, but what about the lacrosse tournament? Because their son Billy is apparently this super hot lacrosse player, and they're concerned about a scout that's going to come and scout. Because they do that for lacrosse. The more you know. Okay. Sam is a little bit like, you know, we're talking about a dead person here, and you're concerned about your kid's fucking lacrosse game. You can tell Sam wants to get right in this woman's face and growl at her, which I would have been completely fine with, because Sam can get in my face and growl at me any time he wants to, because #woman needs don't judge. It doesn't end particularly nicely between the family and Sam. Dean shows up and shows Sam what he found at the crime scene, talking with he went to the morgue, talked to the coroner at the morgue, and also picked up a souvenir from Susie's body. Ew. What he picked up was a vampire fang. And also the interesting fact that on Susie's body there were no defensive wounds, which means she didn't fight back against whoever or whatever was attacking her, which could mean a couple of different things, like she was unable to, you know, perhaps hypnotized, mind controlled, whatever, or she trusted the person. It was someone she knew. So, we see a night shot, like later on in the evening, and a girl walking to her car. She's talking with somebody on the phone. She's obviously another cheerleader, and she's talking about what happened and stuff like that. She's not exactly being very nice, as she's talking about the girl who's taken over the cheerleading squad, and whose name is Veronica. But while she's talking, something is watching her from the woods and attacks her. We cut to the next morning, and Sam and Dean at the crime scene, at least where Susie's body was found, and they obviously noticed one thing right away, the fact that for someone who was chopped up, very badly mutilated, there's no blood, which could mean, somebody, killed her somewhere else, brought her here. And Sam watches somebody go jogging by, and he's very bitter. He's very bitter about what they're doing, and the fact that they have to do this, that they're the people that have to go out there and fight what's in the dark, what can kill people, and people don't know that they're doing it. And Dean brings up, ever since you were a kid, you wanted to live in a town like this. Lame, normal. Sam responds, yeah, we don't get normal. And these towns, everything's the end of the world. You're late for work, your kid doesn't get into the right school, whatever. They have no idea what's out there. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor darling, you poor darling, please come here, let me hold you. And I don't mean that in a sexual way. You're in pain and I want to heal you. I just felt so bad. Oh my gosh, I just was so upset. They get a call from the school about the other girl that's gone missing. We cut to a home in Wisconsin where a man is going on a fishing trip with his sons, and we see the man saying goodbye to his wife, and his wife is Becky Rosen. She's apparently married to this dude and has a couple of kids, and seems to be just being the person that she, wants to be. And she's standing there and she waves goodbye to her husband and kids, and all of a sudden sees Chuck on the other side of the street. And it's not a really happy, like, oh, I'm so glad to see you, former boyfriend of mine, kind of. It's not like that at all. Back in Beaverdale, as it turns out, both of the girls were cheerleaders, and apparently, that whatever is doing this apparently has some kind of as Dean puts it, a fetish for cheerleaders, which does not particularly go over well with Mrs. Bailey. I'd like to bring that up. Back in Becky's home, Becky is still a Supernatural fan, but she is writing her own supernatural stories. She's writing stories where Sam and Dean aren't always out killing monsters and, being, tortured and having to deal with all this angst and stuff like that. That they just do laundry and talk and stuff like that. And she also brings up, what she did to Sam, where she essentially roofied him into marrying her. I am not gonna Hulk smash. I'm not. But she does bring up that she had therapy and that she wasn't really in love with Sam. She was in love with the character of Sam Winchester. Okay. I guess that's fine. But she obviously has moved on. She's, it was very obvious in that scene where she says goodbye to her husband and kids. She's very happy with her life right now. She loves her husband. She loves her kids. And that she is a person that is doing her own thing right now, and she's very happy with it. And people like the fics that she's writing. Even though Chuck says, well, people like fics with the monsters and they like seeing Sam and Dean in angst and pain and stuff, and Becky's kind of like, nah. I mean, as it turns out, she's making a living with what she does. She's a housewife and she makes a living, working from her home, selling supernatural memorabilia and things like that. on Etsy, and maquettes, which are little models and sculptures and things like that, which are cool. I mean, I've seen a lot of them and they're really cool. It's really kind of funny because some of the things she has, I'm like, oh my gosh, those little baubles, I have that, or I know someone who has that, or stuff like that, which I was like, that's cool. And she's just happy, and happy is not what she is about Chuck being there. Chuck tells her what's been going on with him, sort of, in his own way, making him seem like he's the person that's, he's had all of this bad stuff happen to him. And he says that, you don't need me. No one does. I'm happy for you, Becky, that you like yourself, but I kind of hate me right now. And he's trying to get Becky's adoration again, that whole thing of being worshipped as a writer, not as God, because she doesn't know that. And Becky's just not having any of it. And she tells, Chuck tells her that he feels lost. And Becky tells him that the reason he feels lost is because he's a writer. And that because he's a writer, he needs to write. That the reason that he's feeling so badly is because basically telling him that, you have a thing in life that you do that makes you happy. And if that's the thing that you do, you should do it. Don't procrastinate. Don't let distractions get in the way. You're letting those things get in your way so you can make excuses to yourself not to write. So just push all that stuff aside and just write. We see Dean interviewing the school mascot, who is a person in a beaver suit. I'm assuming it's a boy. I know I shouldn't do that because I know girls can be mascots. Dean had commented on the beaver earlier because it's zipping around on one of those little scooter things. Person in a beaver costume on a scooter, because why not? He thought that was awesome, and I kind of do too. That he interviewed the person in the costume and found out some more information about the other girls on the cheerleading squad. And we see one of those, things that people put up, a memorial. I couldn't think of the word. I'm sorry. My mind went totally blank. A memorial to Susie with her picture and flowers and things like that. And this girl who was now the head of the cheerleading squad, Veronica, who is talking with Billy, who was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Whitman, who we saw before. And Mrs. Whitman comes in and she's pissed off that he's talking with Veronica, and she drags him off. I'm like, okay, yeah, lady, you're really kind of a turbo bitch. We see the girl rehearsing the eulogy that she's going to give, or I don't know if it's a eulogy, because usually when I think of a eulogy, that's in a church. And she's talking about the girl that died and all this stuff, and it's actually quite nice. She's interrupted by Sam and Dean, who come in and say they're federal agents and they're trying to find out more about what happened with Susie and all this other stuff like that. And now the fact that, this girl's next in line to be, she's going to be head of the cheerleading squad and all this stuff like that. And, so, it's like, it's looking kind of bad for Veronica until the Winchesters notice something else about Veronica. She has braces. And, braces don't exactly work with vampire fangs, because I don't even want to know how that would work. I mean, I don't think it would work at all, because the second you tried, I can't even picture having regular teeth and having braces on them and then having the vamp fangs come down like they do in Supernatural, because that's too much of a mess. That's a big old mess is what that is. We cut to the Whitman home where Billy and his mother are arguing about something, and we see Dad who's washing his hands in the sink as he's just got this whole kind of, that dad seems so beat down by mom, who seems like this total, like, Black Hawk level helicopter parent. He's all like, listen to your mother, do what your mother says, blah, blah, blah. And we realize that dad's washing off blood in the sink. And from the look of it, it ain't dad's blood. And we cut to a different part of the house where we see the girl that was kidnapped earlier. Her name is Tori. She's in the house, laying on a table, and she's awake, or just woken up, and she is blindfolded and gagged and, tied up. This is obviously not a good thing. So we cut back to Becky, who is talking still with Chuck and just telling him that she's basically going over all the things that she said previously, that, he just needs to get back to writing. And it really does seem like she's getting through to him, because all of a sudden Chuck gets up and walks over to her computer without asking her anything and starts tapping away. Sam and Dean back at the school review the video cameras, because there were video cameras in the parking lot of the school, because they do that now. Y'all gotta remember, I graduated school in the mid-'80s, so this kind of freaks me out. The car that, there's a car on there, they get the license plate of the car, from when Tori was attacked. Billy, needless to say, knows what his parents are doing. Be nice if the rest of us did, although we've really already figured out from Tied Up Tori that it's not good, and he's completely horrified by what his parents have already done, and now here comes Sam and Dean, and they're not wearing their Fed suits, so shit's gonna get real. While they're there trying to talk to the parents and Billy, they hear there's a noise of, thumping sound, and Sam goes to check that out. And Dean takes out the machete that he has, and it turns out Sam finds Tori, who is on this table and very weak. The reason she is very weak is because she is attached to she's got an IV in her arm. Her blood is being drained into a blood bag, like, at the hospital kind of blood bag. And Sam looks completely disgusted. And all of a sudden there's Mom pointing a gun at Sam. Now, instantly, this sets my hackles a-rising. I never knew I had hackles till I started watching Supernatural. It turns out you have hackles and they rise when you get angry. Ta-da! So Mom's got a gun and she's got it trained on Sam. So now I'm like, oh, well, you're dead. There's a tense standoff in the living room. Dad is basically like, he's telling what he wants to happen. He's like, he wants Mom to take Billy and leave. He's basically taking the blame for all of this shit, whatever has happened, because Dean is convinced Dad is a vamp. Dad got attacked by a vampire at some point and bitten and turned, and now he started with attacking cows, but now that didn't do it, and now, he's gone to starting to attack humans. Becky reads the things that Chuck has written so far, and at first she says that she really likes what he's writing. The problem is, as she's reading it, she starts to critique what he's writing, and it's not that she's critiquing, to be perfectly honest, she's not really critiquing it in a mean way or anything like that. She's just saying stuff about what he's written. And as it turns out, they're all the things that are going on in this episode, kind of. They're talking about that, there hasn't been any classic rock mentioned, which there hasn't been in the episode, that neither Sam nor Dean have talked about Castiel, which they haven't, which you would kind of think, why hasn't Sam reamed Dean out yet for Cass being gone? Does Sam even know Cass is gone? Or whatever, we don't know. And other things that aren't like I said, they're not mean critiques or anything like that, but Chuck gets really irritated with what she says and asks her that, she wants more jeopardy and she wants more danger. And he says, move, I'll give you danger, and starts writing again, which is obviously not a really good thing. As it turns out, back at the Whitman house, Dad isn't the vampire. Billy is. That his parents have been covering for him. That Billy was the one who was attacked. That he and Susie had been making out, and he just, caught the scent of her, the blood in her veins, and, one thing led to another, and she wound up dead because he's a monster now. And I hate saying it that way. That sounds horribly cold, but sometimes you gotta call it like you sees it, and Billy's a monster now. Billy's a vamp. Sam and Dean are obviously still in danger because Mom wants to shoot them. Yeah, because I didn't hate you enough before, bitch. Because their whole thing is, Dad's whole thing is definitely, it's like, this is our child. We love him. Wouldn't you do anything for your child? Don't you understand, and all this stuff. And of course Sam and Dean understand, which they can't explain to this guy. The thing is, Billy's cowboying up. Billy's all like, he knows that he has become something that he can't control. He cannot just be like, well, I'm just gonna drink cow. Obviously, that's obviously not fucking working. He knows what he is, and he knows what has to happen. He wants to, he tells his parents to call the police, tell them that he killed Susie, he kidnapped Tori, and then he ran away. And then he tells the Winchesters, specifically tells Dean, he wants Dean to put him down. So we see the Winchesters driving the Impala into the woods at night as we're cutting back and forth between we're having this like montage of scenery as we see Billy's parents talking to the police. We see Tori being taken out of the hospital in an ambulance because she's in a really bad way. And we see Billy Whitman kneeling on the ground in the woods and Dean behind him swinging the machete as Sam looks on. And while all of this stuff is going on, the song that is playing is a song called Sounds of Someday, which is by Radio Company, which happens to be the band that is it's a collaboration, musical collaboration between Jensen Ackles and Steve Carlson. And this song is fucking amazing. We all need to go order the album right now. And we need to have a tour. We need to have a tour right now of Radio Company. You guys come up to Massachusetts. Please go to some place small and intimate like Great Scott or someplace like that, or wherever. I don't care. I will find a way to get there. Back in Wisconsin, Chuck has finished what he was writing, the whole darker stuff, and Becky has read it, and the look on her face is absolute fucking terror. Like, think of the worst news you could get in your life and multiply that by 1,000,000 and put it on paper and have to read it. That's the look on her face. And Chuck is just beside himself with joy about what he's written. He tells her that it's an ending and he's not sure how he's going to get to that point. But now he has the ending and, that's going to be, that's great. We'll just figure out where to go from there. Like I said, Becky is completely horrified. she's saying how dark it is, and Chuck says that it's dark, but he says that he thinks it's great, that it's going to be called Supernatural: The End, and that the cover of the book would just be a gravestone that says the name Winchester. He thinks the fans are going to love it, and he asks Becky's opinion because the horrified look on her face apparently wasn't enough of a clue. She tells him that it's terrible, there's no hope in it at all. She tells him he can't do that to the fans. What he does, whatever he does in this thing to Dean, whatever he does to Sam, I have to admit, what you did to Sam, yeah, that made my heart start beating to the point where it's like, I think my heart is about to explode. Chuck's response to all of that is there, see? It's making you feel something. That's good, right? And he's completely oblivious to the fact that she is utterly horrified, or doesn't even care that she's horrified. The problem is, that moment, her husband and children come back. And her husband's talking about, that he got sick in the boat and blah, blah, blah. And, just kind of like fun, anecdotal family type stuff. And, he walks into his house and there's his wife talking with some dude. And he's like, who's this? Chuck snaps his fingers and all of a sudden her husband fades away. And I don't mean fades away like 1 second he's there, the next second he's not. No, I mean fades away like the end of Avengers Infinity War when Thanos snapped his fingers. And all I can hear in my head is, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. And I'm completely freaking out. We hear the kids talking and all of a sudden Chuck snaps his fingers again, and there's no sound of children. And Becky is, of course, freaking the hell out. And Chuck says they're not dead. He sent them away. And I'm like, away? Where? I'm like, away? Where? When? Away could mean I sent them down the street. Away could mean I sent them to Paris. Away means I could have sent them to Outer Mongolia. Away means I could have sent them to Alpha Centauri. Away means I could have sent them back to ancient Roman times. What the fuck does away mean? Becky is completely terrified now, and now Chuck decides to spring on her after all of that he's God. And Becky tells him to bring them back. She pleads with him, please, you can't do this. And Chuck snaps his fingers again, and Becky is sent away. And Chuck tells no one, I can do anything. I'm a writer. And I'm just completely stress puking internally, because like I said, all I'm hearing in my head on a continuous loop is, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good, and seeing Groot vanish and all this other shit like that, and I'm like, fuck. I'm completely like, I really need a paper bag to breathe in right fucking now. Thank goodness for commercials, because fuck me. We cut to Sam and Dean driving back to the Batcave, and they're driving and they're actually talking. Nobody's doing the whole I'm fine shit. We've gone beyond the point of I'm fine ain't gonna cut it anymore, and I think both boys know that. Because Sam says he doesn't know if he can move on. He doesn't know if he can forget any of the people they've lost. And he doesn't know that he wants to. He says how he still thinks about Jessica, and my heart just completely... If I had any bit of my heart that wasn't broken at that point, yeah, that was the thing that finally shattered it. So thanks very much, Davey Perez, for completely shattering my heart when you wrote this episode. I really super appreciate it. Seriously, Davey, great job with the writing, but wow, you know how to hurt a girl. And Dean's saying that, that's not what he's not saying that they have to forget the people that they lost. They just have to try and go on from it. And because he was saying how that, they're finally free. If Chuck's really washed their hands of them, then they really are free. But Dean's saying that Sam's saying he doesn't feel free. That all the things they've been through and everyone they've lost, their mom who they've lost again, Jack, Rowena, all the people that they've lost before, that he feels like he can't even breathe, that it's crushing him, the weight of all of it. He says, but maybe tomorrow, maybe I'll feel better in the morning. Dean asks him, and what if you don't? And I swear Sam had tears in his eyes when he says, I don't know. And that's killing Dean as well, because Dean's whole life is always look out for your brother, protect your brother. And it's very difficult to protect people when what's tearing them apart is something inside them, when it's not a monster that you can't fight. That's really, really rough. Back in Becky's now empty house, we see Chuck writing happily away on Becky's computer, and the figures of the Winchesters, these little tiny figures that almost look like they're trembling in fear. And the episode ends. I am giving Atomic Monsters 4.5 bouquets out of 5. Really great Monster of the Week stuff, but also really moving the story along really well. And I have to talk about Becky right now. And I would like to seriously stress, when I'm talking about Becky, I am talking about Becky Rosen, the character. I am not talking about Emily Perkins, the actress. So, Emily, if you ever hear this podcast, hi. And I want to say you've done an amazing job as Becky, because at first I was like, oh wow, she seems like a pretty okay person. She's just a little weird, but hey, aren't we all? By the time season 7, Time for a Wedding came about, I was completely like, yeah, that's rage. That's rage that I'm feeling right now. This bitch roofied Sam into marrying her, and I hate her, and I want something horrible to happen to her, and I want it right now. And then this episode happened, and Becky went through everything she went through in this episode. And by the end of this episode, Becky is gone. I'm not really sure if Becky is dead. I don't know. I don't know what away means, And it made me think of how I felt earlier on, how much I hated Becky, how much I wanted something terrible to happen to Becky. And trust me, as a wrestling fan of 30 plus years who went through the ECW era, I know a lot of terrible ways people can cause each other injury, and I wanted all of them to happen to Becky. And then this episode happened, and as I mentioned, I'm talking about Becky, not the actress, so this isn't some stalker thing. I can tell the difference. I really, truly can. And here Becky's gone by the end of the episode. She watched her husband die or go away. She knows her children are gone away. And she's gone away. I got what I wanted. And I feel terrible about it. Being a Star Trek fan for a very long time, there's a quote from the episode Amok Time that Spock gives that really fits the way I felt after this episode. This played in my brain after this episode, after what happened to Becky. quote goes like this. After a time, you may find that having is not so pleasing a thing after all as wanting. It is not logical, but it is often true. Sorry, Becky. And to Elizabeth, amazing job. Sorry, Emily. Gosh, did I say Elizabeth? Why do I always want to call you Elizabeth? I don't know why I do that. But Emily, fantastic job as Becky. Just crazy good. You were really, really fantastic. Rob Benedict, whom I really adore as an actor, you scared the living fucking piss out of me in this episode, bro. Seriously, not fucking lying. And the fact that Jared and Jensen both don't have Emmys sucks. And the fact that Jared's probably not going to get nominated for an Emmy for his work in this episode sucks. But that's the way it goes. Amazing episode. Holy fucking shit. This season is gonna fucking kill me. Next week's episode is called, Proverbs, chapter 17, verse 3. I've actually looked up what that means. I'll talk about it in next week's episode. And, I don't get it. I have to be honest. It disturbs me. A whole lot. Okay, cats and kittens, a couple of more little tidbits of news and such before I jet on out of here, because you must be sick of my voice by now. Supernatural is going to be changing its day schedule back when it comes back from hiatus in March. When Supernatural comes back on March 16th in 2020, that is a Monday. So that means Supernatural has been on every single night of the week in primetime. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think that's just crazy. And we also know that May 18th will be the series finale of Supernatural. Okay. There is something about that I would like to bring up, because my dear, sweet, long-suffering husband, as I mentioned early on, my Imzadi, apple of my eye, cream in my coffee, Boris to my Natasha, whole thing. He mentioned something to me when I mentioned that, I know when the series finale is going to be. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, hey, do you know what that is? That's the 40th anniversary of the eruption of Mount St. Helens." Yeah. Okay. That's obviously something that some of you out there listening to this right now, may not be old enough to remember. You may not have even been born. I was. And so was my husband. He actually lived in Washington when Mount St. Helens, a volcano, blew her top, caused a shit ton of damage, and some people lost their lives, and it caused a whole big, huge natural disaster problem. I'm like, no shit. I'm gonna go have another panic attack now. I'll be right back. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. I don't know if it just means the people at the CW have a sick sense of humor. I don't know. We still don't know a lot of the episodes coming up. We don't know the names, the titles of the episode. We know that next week's episode is Proverbs chapter 17, verse 3. The episode after that is Golden Time. And after that, we're not really very sure. I don't know if they're going to be airing on Thanksgiving. I would actually assume not, but who knows. Also, real quick, awesome to see Ty Olson back for just a blip of a second in this episode as Benny. Hi, Ty. Totally missed seeing you. Really happy you were back, even though you died. Bummer. But Benny died. Y'all know what I mean. So, there's been some speculation online, because what else is there to do, about what the final episode of Supernatural should be called. And a lot of people have speculated, that it should be called, Carry On Wayward Son, Lay Your Weary Head to Rest, Don't You Cry No More, stuff like that. What do you guys think it should be called? I'd love to know. I mean, what do you think that the last episode of Supernatural should be called? I have a bunch of things in mind, but I don't want to say them right now. I'd rather talk about them individually with you if you want to write to me, platinumroselle@yahoo.com. I hope you will check out all of the other sites that are part of our show. We have this great patron circle thing coming up. If you guys sign up for that, it's going to be $5 a month. That's less than a large latte at Starbucks. And there's going to be all kinds of cool things that go along with it if you do that. Any money that we do get is going to go to make our shows better and more interactive and all kinds of cool, fun stuff for you. As I mentioned, we have all these other great shows out there, Subject Cinema and Front Row 5 and 10. I have a couple of solo shows, including Ring Around the Rosie. I also have a YouTube channel now called Platinum Rose's RolePlay. I have a few meager works of fiction on there if you'd like to check them out. And also if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, PlatinumRoseL@Twitter.com. Other people that are part of our little island of misfit toys, Eric and Valerie over at Cavebabble, and Anthony Lamberti over at Ampy's Nerd Grotto. And we just have a lot of fun, and we have all kinds of crazy things that we do, and we definitely want you to be involved and be part of it and be part of our little family. And that is going to do it for another week here on Platinum Rose's Garden. So I'm going to sign off and go try and calm down again, because I thought about this episode and now I'm all wigged out. So I think I'll go have a lie down. This is Platinum Rose Lady signing off for another week, reminding you to love the ones you hug the ones you love, and take some time to stop and smell the roses. I'll see you around. Bye, guys.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.